it looks like. And it says end broadcast, which means that we are live. Woo! All right, let me just make sure that we're live because I actually don't know.
It looks
yes, looks live to me. All right, everyone. Woo! We're going. Yeah, every time I stream, I obviously don't know what I'm doing. But I'm so glad. Also, I'm like wearing headphones, so I'm probably shouting right now. I don't need to talk this loud. But yeah, so glad that you're all here to talk about Stranger Things. Yeah, I'm really happy everyone's here. As I keep on saying, I haven't seen everyone in a while. Yes, I'm still doing YouTube. I'm still making videos. I just am really slow, unfortunately. But I'm really glad to see everyone talk about this show. If anyone's been following my Twitter, people might have seen some tweets about it that I've had. And yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack. And yeah, I'm very excited to do that. So yeah, Silver Spook, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your channel? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Aloha. I am Silver Spook. I am a Native Hawaiian activist. I also make YouTube videos at the Silver Spook channel, and I Twitch stream fairly frequently. There's every Saturday I make a YouTube. I do a live streamed improv video basically, and then I do 3 Twitch streams on Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday at 6 Pacific time. And then I also make games like the one over there, Neofeud. My day job is mostly making video games at the Silver Spook Cooperative, making left indigenous. That's the only lens I have, so that's a indigenous left focused games like Neofeud and Decolonators and other fun stuff like that. Currently working on Neofeud too, and I'm at Silver Spook guy and doing. I'm very online, so yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you're here. I'm gonna go through a little bit of comments, maybe, and then maybe we can dive into some of the things because it's really interesting because we already have some comments. So Lady Gray says, I have to admit, Stranger Things is turning into another one for the Fix-It fanfic writers. It says something to me that I read Fix-It Fix that I like more than canon material. Not just stuff I like as a fan is changed, but someone also hit themes and character development better in my opinion. And I just want to read this other one. Some Soyborn says, true, the show is pretty dumb. Lol's first season had some potential, but it was downhill from there. I give zero crap about the red-headed brother and sister who were introduced in season 2. So yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, to hear, like, what are your opinions on, like, people saying it's kind of like a fix-it show, which I kind of do like the idea of, like, reading fanfic about it, or like thinking that people saying that's gone downhill.
Yeah, I just read that Stranger Things has been edited like in the last few weeks or few days because of lots of little issues and quibbles. But which is it's like somebody's birth date shows up somewhere and it's the wrong day, things like that. So they've been fixing things, and I don't know, like the show generally, like I mean, like I watched all of it, so like it's got to be good enough that I sat through all many hours of it, all seasons. I just rewatched about a few episodes. Like it's very nostalgic in a lot of ways. I played a lot of games. I didn't play like a lot of specifically D&D, but I played a lot of Diablo, Chrono Trigger, JRPGs, RPGs, computer games. I'm more of a computer nerd. Played a lot of metal guitar. I literally had a BC Rich Warlock, that metal guitar that Eddie is playing, Master of Puppets, to circling birds from the underside / hell in the metal scene of the series. And so I would relate to a lot of things in the show. At the same time, like I have other, we're going to get into that, aspects of my personal experience as as a person of color in specifically Hawaii, that it misses. But I feel like it's it's kind of it's a show made by 30-something-year-old mainstream Americans, and so everything that is relatable. And I don't actually know how much of a nerd they were. Some things are like wrong. I'm like, but I don't want to like nerd out. Like they get the dates. Like Eddie has like less than a month to learn all of Master of Puppets and play the, actually the actor Joseph Quinn doesn't actually play the guitar solo. Although Joseph Quinn is actually a guitarist. So I was actually watching him play Master of Puppets. I've actually made an entire metal album, partially inspired by Stranger Things. And I was watching him play, and I see him missing the power chords. He's like hammering on the wrong notes, and I'm like, Joseph Quinn, you should have practiced. I'm just kidding. Although there's actually video of him playing it. So, anyways, long story short, there's lots of like nerdy, like the like just like being raised in I don't know, Western, in a Western country, in a Western reality, with the Goonies, watching the Goonies, playing your D&D, going to school, being the weird odd one out, because I'm queer, non-white, bigger person than all of the very skinny, fairer, richer people than me, and I'm like going home and playing loud music with a giant amp, and all that kind of stuff is like that part is like the Hellfire Club is the most relatable to be honest for much of the show, but even still, like there's things that we're gonna get into. Anyways, I'll stop going off on tangents, but that's just generally I would say I liked it, and there's lots of things that I liked about it, and there's other things I'm like, these are problems, but these are like, to my mind, these are like general problems with all of Western entertainment. But
yeah, absolutely. And I just want to see, is Ryndes here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Do you want to do a introduction as we kick things off?
Sure. I was streaming for a while and discussing representation in media and politics on Twitch. I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to turn on the camera.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, if you can't, I just want to talk. That's also right. Oh yeah,
Okay.
maybe at settings, and then there's the camera thing. If you haven't seen that.
Okay, you said in the settings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see.
Also, is everyone okay if I'm eating this peach, or is it rude? I just like am eating it and like, maybe it's a bad time to eat a peach.
I'm fine.
It's fine with me.
Okay, cool.
Okay, it says that I can go to manage. I think I'll figure it out later. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually wanted to start doing more streams talking about films that I've watched this year. I'm doing a challenge where I'm going to watch 365 movies this year, and I want to review each one of them on my stream.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
Do you want to give like a shout out to your to where you stream?
Yeah, I'm streaming on Twitch. It's the same name, RYENDYS.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're just talking, kind of just like getting into Stranger Things in general. Silver Spook was just kind of mentioning, as you heard, like just kind of like how there's like lots of things to love about Stranger Things, which is something that I kind of agree. There's a lot to love, and then because it's kind of made by, I'm assuming, actually, I don't know like what the race the Duffer Brothers are. I'm assuming they're white. Let's just look this up. The Duffer Brothers. But there's just like some things that are missed that is kind of a problem, as Silver Spook said, in every media. And so yeah, I'm really excited to kind of like break down what some of that is. But yeah, let's see. One of the first questions that people have that I think is interesting. So Aaron brings up, what do you think about the portrayal of the Soviet Union in contrast with the portrayal of the CIA? Maybe just to like start off, like I sadly don't know enough about the Soviet Union to like really have like a formed and educated opinion on how people are portraying it. But I do have an issue with how in that portrayal of the Soviet Union, like the way that they're blatantly anti-communist, like especially like in season 4, like they're like always shouting at people and being like, like you know, like you dirty communists, things like that. Like they're not just saying like, you know, having issue like with this particular like country, like they're having an issue with communism. And that for me is a problem because you know, in a club a little bit ago, we were reading Red Deal. Like that book is deconstructing colonialism and capitalism, and it gives like these very clear kind of list of things that we need to do, right? And like in no clear terms, it talks about like here's what we need to do. Instead of having a capitalist system, we actually have to have a system of caretaking, which is what Indigenous people have been doing, and we need to actually figure out how to implement that in today's times and have that system. And basically it ends up kind of laying out a communist system without, I think it might mention communism a couple times, but it really focuses, I think, on communism through an indigenous lens. And it does focus on kind of like North America as opposed to, you know, just people across the globe. But I think that's a really important thing that we need to understand. Like everything that's going on with climate change, we really need to shift our mentality onto caretaking instead of just like capitalism, which is like this system that just takes and takes and takes and takes. So in today's day and age, we really don't need to be making anti-communist propaganda. Like just if we're thinking about like what are we going to like where's the world going to go? Like we need to end we need to end capitalism. Like we have like all these sets of issues before us that make it an imperative. And the solution to that is going to be communism or something that looks like communism. So we just don't need to be making anti-communist propaganda. And that's what I think about that with regards to how they handled the Soviet Union. And then, yeah, with the CIA, I think they kind of have this, in my opinion, they have this like, well, both people have some bad things going on without really being critical of like just the scope of like how fucked up the US is, how fucked up the CIA is. And yeah, that's something that really bothered me. What are all of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can go. I actually have an entire like I said, I do like one video a week on Saturday morning. I've done like two recently on Stranger Things, but one of them was specifically to your point about the anti-communism in Stranger Things, which like I would argue like that's everywhere in Western everything, but also entertainment included. And so in US, but of course, as the leader of the West. And I think I did a video. It was called Stranger Things. And what was it called? Stranger Things and the Eternal Childhood of the American Mind, which is basically I was talking about there was how one of the arguments that was like going around, especially in left circles in the United States and Canada, for the last few seasons, this was going around, which is that Stranger Things isn't anti-communist. It's just that there was a Cold War happening in the 20th century, where the United States, the greatest capitalist country in the world, was at Cold War with the Soviet Union, right, the communist country, and so Stranger Things, right, set in the 1980s, right, in Hawkins, Indiana, a small town, rural Indiana. This is just normal. This is period cinema TV. This is just what happened in the 80s. This is no political agenda. This is just how it was. Everyone just had Russians hiding under their mall, you know, and this is like anti-communism everywhere. And, you know, and so, you know, this is a kind of the cop out. This part of my argument is that like a lot of Americans TV shows and cinema, especially those produced by the fairer and the wealthier and the more well-connected and the less, you know, like unlike a Jordan Peele or let's say like a Reservation Dogs is an indigenous perspective, a TV show, which are talking about things happening right now, which is dying capitalism and the fall, kind of U.S. in a great throes in a lot of ways as a leader of the West. But a lot of the shows that are being made now that are like whiter and liberal are making movies about the 20th century. Things like, you know, the Queen is a British version of this, where, oh, this was a great monarchy. Look, Captain Marvel, not Miss Marvel, but Captain Marvel is about, look at the 90s. After the fall of the Soviet Union, everyone just joined the Air Force and had Hillary Clinton here. And wasn't it great? Right. And this kind of like, you know, I'm nostalgic because I grew up in the United States, illegal state of Hawaii, but I grew up raised in what is the United States in the 1980s and the 90s. So I know all of this stuff, right? I know the malls, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Pop-Tarts, and, you know, oh, running up that hill, I know that song, it's, really good, but it is like pulling your heartstrings because that's the stuff that we remember. But at the same time, it's kind of like number one, they're really playing up the anti-communism. Number two, that was never right? Just because capitalism is being shown for the screwed up settler colonial, like the Red Deal is pointing all this out, like it was never right to be a racist, capitalist, misogynist, homophobe in the 1960s, 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, or now, right? It just but there's just like, so it's kind of like I don't like that argument because like do we need to be making period pieces from that time? Number one, and number two, like that's keeping everybody trapped in the Cold War capitalist mentality when they're also trying to launch new Cold Wars. I mean that's a whole massive topic. I don't really want to derail this whole thing, but there's the U.S. is losing its primacy in the world. I mean this is obvious. It's being surpassed by other entities in the world. It's whatever you think about them. A lot of them are the ones that the U.S. was at Cold War with, and so this is like very dangerous. On top of it being very childish, right? Because and I think it is not. I'll try to cut this off because this is an infinite topic, but it's not helpful to, I think, over enable this good guys and bad guys, us and them mentality about the communists are bad, and by those we mean everything in the 60% of the earth that's Asia. That's actually most of the planet, right? Anything over there, we don't know anything about it. And when we do go there, it's all black and white, and they're all doing forced labor. Like America doesn't like that. I really didn't like that, right? In Russia is where there are prisons where people do forced labor. Not like there's 2.5 million disproportionately non-white people, especially black people, in prison doing forced labor right now in the United States and in the 1980s, right? So that stuff. The fact that Stranger Things was shot in a Nazi camp, and
oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was, and there's a Nazi camp that's now a hotel you can visit in that part of Europe. That part is really disgusting. And then there's the fact that it is, but it's like there might be like one slightly humanized Russian character, but and this is anyway. This is like such a deep topic. I don't want to go off too far, but I'll just cut off by saying like I think you're right that it's kind of a cop out because number one, there were not Russians building secret labs underneath malls where they were serving up Baskin Robbins ice cream. That was season 3. That was just like over the top.
Season 3 was garbage.
Yeah. And anyways, I'll stop. I could go on too long for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Actually I wanted to ask Ryndes, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, from season 4, the way that they portrayed Yuri, and also I'm not sure if you touched on that earlier, but how he was willing to betray the people that he was helping, and that they did make a comment that, would your mother be proud of you? And he said yes, because they would have money. So kind of like, that's anti-communist, saying like, oh, this is, we're poor in this country and the capitalism is going to come and save us from poverty.
Yeah, it's like I'm ashamed. I wish I knew more about the Soviet Union. It's something I really need to read about that history. But yeah, something just seeing like the framing of just like, like these capitalists are going to save you and communism is just like bad, and like that on its own seems like a major problem. Like even if there are bad things about the Soviet Union, like I think we just need to really stop putting propaganda that just basically the takeaway is just like capitalism's good and it's going to save us all and communism's just awful. And I think that's something too that I know, like I mentioned a lot, where Erica in season 3 is just like, I love capitalism, I think it's great. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why is there like a little black child talking about how she loves capitalism? Like, that's so weird. That is so weird. Like, it's just and then like she comes in with this like American flag when she plays the D&D thing as a cape, and it's all just really bizarre to me. It's also like bizarre, especially given like the imagery that I see with like just when I see like militias or things like that, like I know like they're not saying that Erica's like someone like who's in a militia, but like I like see people wearing like capes who are just like these extremists, and I just think it's really weird that they have this like black little girl being like, I love capitalism, and like wearing an American flag, because especially like in the 80s where like people are still dealing with some with racism and like this really like in this way that they just kind of like edit it out. I mean, they definitely do that today, but yeah. So I'm just gonna read some of these comments. Have you seen the video Stranger Things and the Dangers of Nostalgia by James Somerton? It goes to the themes and aesthetics of Reagan era America in in Stranger Things. I have not seen that, but I'm gonna add that to my list because I need to see videos like that. Because yeah, I thought about making a video like unpacking it, because I also think there's really good things about Stranger Things too. Like some people have been saying, like I know like one of the comments was saying that like the show just went downhill. And if it had ended at season 3, I would definitely think that. But with season 4, like I honestly thought season 4 was as good as season 1. And I'm curious to hear everyone's here's thoughts about it. But I thought it was as good as season 1, but there was just like some things that are just kind of like that I just kind of missed. Like I think season 3, like with the anti-communist propaganda, like that was just really weird. Like it was so in your face with that. And there was like this kind of like leaning on 80s nostalgia. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone else's thoughts?
I could just jump in on the season 3 is where it really took off. I think it's actually just, this is not really directly related, but you know, Parks and Rec is another show where shows, what happens is often the shows start small, and then when the empire goes, oh, everybody likes that thing, let's stick military industrial complex garbage into it. Let's stick some, you know, pro-capitalist, pro-empire stuff in there. And like at the end of Parks and Rec, it was like all of a sudden Obama, Biden, all these politicians started showing up. Like the last season or two, the budget exploded. Right? It's like, oh, you like that? Okay, well let's airbrush all these images so they can all get reelected. And it's kind of like season 3 it was like, oh, everybody really likes this Stranger Things thing. Okay, well let's put Russians in there and make them evil, and let's do some captains. You know, let's have billionaire philanthropist arms dealer. I mean, everything short of having Captain billionaire philanthropist arms dealer Playboy, Iron Man, and Captain military industrial complex, also known as Captain America, literally show up in the movie. But it's kind of like it's a rah America, right? Russia bad. Russians are literally building a secret lab, as I said, under a mall inside of Indiana. They are the problem. You know, they're like conspiring against the great capitalist United States. To destroy your mall, right? The girl, the little black, the black girl is like giving the speech. She's like, America is the greatest country in the world because we have capitalism. I'm gonna be a boss. I'm gonna get my and she's eating like her, you know, double fudge USS butterscotch sundae because we have 57 flavors. We are better than communism. You know, we have Heinz 57 flavors. I got all of these ice cream. I got Neapolitan ice cream. You only got your vanilla ice cream. You sad little commies.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember that. Does she actually
she goes on
like
a full rant in the mall?
There's not other ice cream flavors under communism? Like, get out of here. There's still gonna be ice cream.
It's like, it was like under communism, you only have one teddy bear, but we have Tony the Tiger, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja teddy bear, we have all of these teddy bears, but you're sad and boring. That's why it's all black and white. And when you see Russia in a Western entertainment, which, you know, I have friends in lots of communist countries and socialist countries, and like Luna, they have all kind of thing. I mean, the siege of capitalism empire, like stomping on these countries, is part of it. But anyways, there's just a lot of like there's a major rant that she goes on, and it's like those places are bad, and capitalism and America is the greatest country in the world, absolutely. And I'm a black girl, and that makes it okay because I wasn't a white guy saying it. You know, it's just really weird.
Yes.
That happens.
I think they did it on purpose too. They're like, we're gonna have this token black person or non-white person say something. That way, it'll be okay if they're the one saying it, and it's really disturbing.
And one more, just to tie it into one more thing. This is like in a pattern in I mean, I know this is a Stranger Things, but Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. There is a non-white, you know, Doctor Strange is a white dude. You know, he's got a white girlfriend. But there is a non-white.
Really fast, there's like a loud beeping noise were on someone's screen and it's gone. Okay.
Oh, okay. There was a, in Multiverse of Madness, there is there's a Hispanic character, a non-white character, and her name is America. Her name is America. She wears a star-spangled coat, just like Erica in Stranger Things, and she punches holes through space-time that you can traverse between universes in the shape of stars and stripes. She's, I mean, it's like it's like cartoonish level of like, I mean, anyways, but that's another. Marvel is notoriously, Anthony Mackie came out and said, anytime I've ever been any Disney or Marvel anything, 98% of the producers and the writers and the showrunners and the after parties are all white guys or all white people. And even though you see black people in the front, and I'm like, I'm playing Captain America. Anthony Mackie came out in an interview. He said, I'm playing Captain America right now. I've played, Falcon, etc. I've been in lots of movies. With the exception of Black Panther, everything else is a bunch of white guys, right? It's like the point of Jordan Peele's Get Out, which is that like putting pro-American, pro-capitalist words in the mouths of non-white people that's actually written by the Duffers are, who are they, right? Written by these other people is like really, I don't know, it's just like very, it's just really creepy and makes sense, in the way that, Obama was going to make America, the empire, look less racist and okay. But it's like, it's also like, I mean, it's very upsetting to me who watches this kind of stuff happen all the time in the illegal state of Hawaii. Anyways, so anyway, I just want to say this. This is like that scene with Erica, and that's this kind of like brushing over the racism and brushing over the inequality and all that kind of thing, and using like people of color in particular is a pattern. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Also, like there was like this weird thing where like they sing this song and as I forgot like what the montage is happening, but like I think it's when they're going to Russia or something. Like, oh no, they're going to Alaska. And like in the show, they put this song where like the lyrics are about like they use the word Eskimo. And I'm like, isn't that just like literally a slur like for Inuit people? And I looked it up and it is. And I'm like, well, can you just not use that song? And then I forgot his name, but the surfer boy, let me look this person's name up.
Oh yeah, the long hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant to look up names for let's see, what's his name? Who is Surfer Boy? Oh, can someone just in the comments say his name? Can someone hook me up? Anyways, the Surfer Boy person, like he like uses the word Eskimo too, and I feel like that's
Argyle.
like they have like this non-white person.
Argyle.
Oh, Argyle. I feel like they have this. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I think he's Mexican.
Okay.
So yeah, you're right. He's not white.
Yeah, but they have like this like non-white person saying, and part of me wonders like, do they know that this word is a slur, and did they intentionally have a non-white person say it so it wouldn't be as bad, or do they just not know it's a slur and then just like put it in the show? Like, there's just like stuff like there's just things like that in Stranger Things where I'm just like, could you just not like you could have just like not used a word that a group of people find to be a slur, I don't know. There's just things like that throughout the show. I actually like really want to love the show because I feel like the characters that they make are so endearing. Like I feel like Argyle, Surfer Boy, like he was so endearing. Like every time he said something, pretty much made me laugh. Like when Elle like was just like they were trying to like find like a bath for Elle, and then they're like, we need salt, or no, we need salt because we need to take a bath, and he's like, yeah, because it's important to stay clean before you fight. And I just thought that was like so funny. I was like, this person's so endearing. And yet then they do like these things where I'm just like, wow, like all you had to do was not. Like I feel like this show would be like a 10 out of 10 if they just didn't do these things that were like racist and like didn't literally like make anti-communist propaganda. Like something that really bothers me is like they will talk about like the scare around D&D and how people have like this irrational fear around D&D, and I'm like, yeah, like the Red Scare, like it seems very similar to me. And yeah, that's my general take. Let's see. Aaron says the fact that is a non-white person saying the racial slur doesn't make it not racial slur. Exactly. MSN Fire. I tried to watch the second season when it came out, but the whole vibe of the show changed way too much for me. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that like really bothered me that I got stuck on that I'd be interested to hear what everyone else thinks is with Billy. Billy was like didn't want Max hanging out with Lucas because he's racist, right? So like for anyone watching, like Lucas is black and Max is white and her brother is Billy, who's also white. And Billy was like, I don't want you hanging out with that boy because he's racist. And it really bothered me because it's like, this is the 80s. Like there are going to be so many people who are around you. Like for me as a kid, like I was a little kid in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I experienced so much racism. So I imagine the 80s, it probably was even more intense. And yeah, like they just treat racism like it's just Billy. Like Billy is just this one racist person who's just a jerk rather than it being a systemic thing. And then also, they just drop it. Like they never come back to it. And he has this whole redemption arc. And yeah, it was like a slap in the face. Like to me, it was a slap in the face that they would write this character as racist, not bring it up, and then redeem him without even addressing how racist he was. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
I know that in the new season, the I guess he's the basketball captain. He also says things that, you know, I mean, I interpret it as racist, the way that he's acting towards his teammates. But also Max does talk about how she really hated Billy. I was upset that they didn't mention that one of the reasons that she hated him so much was because he was racist towards her boyfriend.
Yeah, that could be
They just
something
say,
to bring up.
yeah, because they say that she hated him for being mean to her or bullying her, and that they would fight a lot. I'm sorry, but they never come back to it, not even in the fourth season.
Because it's just not important to them, and that to me was a slap in the face. Like I was so angry. Like I pretty much almost didn't watch season 4 because when season 3 happened, I was like, I am so done. And then I heard people talking about it and was like, okay, like I want to see what's up. And then I watched an episode and I was like, okay, like this is fine, whatever, all right. And then I ended up watching all of season 4 and was like, I'm hooked. And I was hooked. But yeah, there's just like all these little issues. So I'm just gonna read some of these comments because I just like reading them. I think the White Duffer brothers wanted to make Billy an a-hole, but they didn't realize the undertones by older brother not wanting his sister to hang out with black teen. Like I think they realized it, and I think they just dropped it and were like, well, we don't want to get back to this. Yeah, at least name it for what it is. Like I just almost wish that people wouldn't handle like I go back and forth. I almost wish people would not have non-white characters if they're gonna mess it up so much. Like I almost wish people would just like not have those characters. Like at the same time too, like with Erica, like Erica, she's extremely endearing. Like I love that she's like sassy and isn't going to take shit. And at the same time, it is such a problem because whenever you watch a show or a cartoon or whatever, and there's a black woman in it, she is sassy and in your face and controlling and demanding. And for me, as someone who was adopted by white people, I didn't grow up around black people. And so a lot of those things were the only representation of black people that I had as a black person. And when I would see that, I'd be like, oh, like black people are sassy or black women, they kind of seem over it. They kind of seem tired. And something that like was really kind of like sad for me to realize, like as I got to know more black people is realizing like, oh my gosh, like black women, there's something culturally happening with a number of black people, like, and this is anecdotal, of course, like this is just my experience, like I met like a number of black people who are actually really, really caring, who actually like it was like built in culturally, like around like there's like something a part of Black culture that like has like this built-in care. Like you kind of see it with, like, even though I'm not religious, like for example, like the Black church, like the way that the Black church is used for like activism, but also as like a community hub to as a place for stability. And that's kind of like built into like how I've like seen a lot of Black people like be caring. There's something culturally there, like as someone who grew up with white people, that I just didn't see. Like, for example, so I was like a little bit tangential, but like there was that movie of that person, oh my gosh, who has like a mustache. He like dresses up and he like pretends he's from Kazakhstan, but he's not actually from Kazakhstan.
Borat.
Borat, yeah. So in the second Borat movie, there's that whole thing where the person playing his daughter is like, I'm gonna get plastic surgery, and she like has to have a babysitter, and it's like this Black woman, and she's like, you shouldn't have to change your body for anyone. Like, you're perfect just the way you are. And she was like extremely like kind to this person. There's something there that like I've seen this like with Black people that like I never got to actually I never actually like knew until I actually met other Black people. And it really breaks my heart that in media Black women are always portrayed as just being sassy and uptight, because there's like this whole facet of Black culture and Black people that is just like never represented, and it's a tragedy in me. So all that to say, I think Erica is really endearing. And also, I think having like another like dark skinned Black girl be portrayed as just being sassy and just being kind of over it is an issue that's been an issue for like a long time. Like, people have been talking about this a lot. Also, hello, Bellamy. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, any thoughts on that? I know I'm talking a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, like, you know, it's like I mean, you probably best to speak on specifically that, but I think like the character is definitely that's a character that comes up again and again and again. That, yeah, and it's weird also that her character is also the one that's, it's the most American, and she and Lucas, and I think in season 4 episode 1, Lucas wins the basketball game, and then Erica wins the Dungeons and Dragons match against the Vecna, you know, the final game of the season, right? And it's kind of like I mean, which is fine and all. And I think like the Duffers would probably be like, you see, the Black characters came and saved the day, and look, that's the positive representation. And I'm not saying that that's like bad, but then it's like, and now that we've had that, now let's have her wear Captain America's outfit and wear Star Spangled cloaks. And it's a little bit thin. I mean, I think actually, Louis, you're probably the best to speak on specifically that. But certainly, as generally as a person of color, though, like I feel like, you know, as somebody who was the you know, one of the darkest and poorest people at a private school full of mostly you know, much more well-to-do people of a different tone, it was like, you know, that you know, actually Eddie's experience, the way that Eddie's character is like, it's this weird thing, just kind of coming back to that. You know, they got the satanic panic, but then they're missing the fact that communism was one of the things that were demonic, satanic things, right? Because gayness, LGBTQ plus, you know, non-whiteness, you know, pink okami was a word that was used in the 20th century altogether, right? And so it's kind of like, you know, queerness, not being Christian, right? And the D&D playing, which is, you know, Dungeons and Dragons is this game that is taking over children's minds in season 4, right? And it, like, Eddie is like reading that whole news article, right? It's like, the Satan has come to America. Dungeons and Dragons is corrupting children's minds, causing them to do sodomy and you know, murder, and all those things are just as bad. You know, just like loving people of the same, you know, gender or, you know, expression is just as bad as murder. It's already, you know, anyways. So they got that there's something was wrong with that, the homophobia maybe, and the demonization of these games. But then it's like you're missing like that, you know, and anti-communism was one of those things that was demonized. As, you know, as an indigenous person whose ways, as a Native Hawaiian whose ways, you know, aloha and kuleana are actual values, right? Like our Turtle Island relatives are based there. They are communistic. In fact, communism and socialism and anarchism were based on Europeans looking at indigenous cultures like mine. So it's kind of like, you know, we were demonized too, you know, like literally we were the ones that were called savage So when you talk about satanic panic, right? Like it's not just having, somebody said like dialectical materialism is often like selectively applied to those things which you personally, especially in the Western left, those things you personally experience. So oppression is like when you couldn't play loud guitars for an upper middle class white kid, like a Duffer brother, right? But it's like there's a much deeper reality than it's not just like, oh, daddy didn't get me the PlayStation game, or I had difficulty being cool in high school, right? Which is what the D&D kids have, right? But there's like a whole nother reality, right? We talk about this in All Goth POC Bounds. There's lots of other layers to the oppressions and much more intense, right? And one of them is anti-communism, and then also anti-blackness, right? And anti-indigeneity, on which the settler colonial state is founded. And so it's this weird thing where it's kind of like, so that's where like I identify with the Hellfire Club, but I'm like, but it in this weird way. But anyway, I'm losing my train of thought there. But you can see how it's kind of like they see that oppression, but they don't really see the full depths of it. They see like a limited, it's like I was joking yesterday with it was Jupiter Doomsday, Jupiter that was been in some of these, and I was like, people listen to Rage Against the Machine and they go, what? When did Rage Against the Machine get woke? It's like I thought it was about raging against the vending machine. I thought it was raging against the Xerox machine. Like, I'm in my office making $100,000 a year and the Xerox machine breaks. That's the worst thing in my life. Not like, I don't know, mass incarceration or racism. It's just like, but for an upper middle class white dude, it's the raging. I thought Tom Morello was upset about the vending machines and the Xerox machines. Not the system.
That's so good. Anyway. I'm going to use that. Oh my gosh.
Anyways, yeah, I've been ranting for a while.
There was a callback to Erica being anti-communist. Her and Lucas have a conversation and they use the word commie, which I feel like when, non-communist people use it, it's kind of a derogatory.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and someone said about Hopper that they don't like Hopper. It's because he's a cop. So that's like propaganda trying to tell you like, oh, he's the best person for Elle and the best father, and look at all these great things he does, saving his girlfriend, and he came to the rescue, and he's like been the hero in the past 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like most propaganda like doesn't phase me because I'm just like, it's so ingrained into everything we watch. Like there's even like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I remember just like watching all these cop shows with my mom, like detective shows as a kid, and it's just like it's so ingrained. But it's like, yeah, it is frustrating that I'm like, yeah, this guy is a cop at the end of the day, and yeah. But I think for me with Hopper, it's also just like, this really bothers me. Like he has all this character development to kind of be like a parent who listens to Elle and be a better listener, be more caring. And then all of it just goes out the window in season 3, and he just starts screaming at Elle to close the door and things like that. And like just all the character development went out the window, and it went out the window for the sake of creating more tension. And that to me just seemed like really lazy writing, and that like really, really bothered me that it happened. And also he's just like a dude in the way, like, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but like there's a way where when I meet like men who just seem like, I'm a man and I'm gonna like really try to fit into the idea of being a man, that like a lot of times like I just kind of feel tired because there's a way where like I'm just like, this person won't really understand what I'm saying about like so many things, and they're not going to try to either, and that's just how it's going to be or something. Like there's like a way where like it's like in some ways I find Hopper endearing because there's like that trope of like a hardened man, and now he has like this person come into his life, like a kid come into his life that he has to like take care of, and that helps soften his heart, and I'm a sucker for that trope. And on the other hand, I'm like, he's also a cop and he's also a dude that seems like very like mannish in a way where he's not going to understand like a lot of things. And yeah, that's kind of my take on Hopper.
And I also wanted to touch on how Elle went from her first abusive father to her. It wasn't her brother, but Vecna. I forgot his name, but he took her.
Oh, Vector is number. This is number 1.
Yeah, 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he took her under his
So was
wing,
Hector.
but he was
Oh, wait.
also using her. And then she ended up with Hopper, right, and waited for him. So she went from like bad to worse, and then I guess we're just supposed to sympathize with Hopper because he's the best option for her, which I still don't think, because she was living with Will's mother, and I think she maybe would have been better, but then she ends up with Hopper too. So I don't know. It just seems like they're going from abusive relationship to abusive relationship.
Yeah. Speaking of relationships, what did you all think about Nancy and I forgot everyone's names. Oh my gosh. Nancy and
Steve is the Mr. Big Hair.
Steve.
He's the
and the other person
with his nuggets.
His nuggets?
Oh, Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes.
Jonathan is the photographer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so like I'm poly, so like whenever I watch stuff like this, I'm like, if these people were literally just poly, everything would be fine. But I just think it's interesting. They just keep on going back and forth. Like someone was saying that they didn't like Lucas's character development in season 4 because all of Lucas's character development centered around a white person, which is Max's character development. And that's something that I do think is true. And then, but also when I think about it, a lot of the characters' character development, like kind of like felt a little bit shallow in a way, just because there was like 3 different stories going on. There was everything happening with Joyce and Hopper, and then there was kind of everything going on with Elle, and then there was like the people trying to find her, and then there was the other group back in Hawkins. So like there's just like multiple stories, and it was kind of like a lot of people's character development was a bit more shallow. Like Nancy's interest in Steve and Jonathan, just like throughout the whole season, like that's kind of just her character development is still just deciding which boy she's going to pick. And then Lucas is like hoping to get back together with Max. Max's character development I thought was really great. I like cried during like that running up that hill song, like when she was like running out of that of the upside down place, and they're like, keep running up that hill, and I was like, yeah, do it. I was like literally like crying. I was like, oh my gosh. And that was awesome. I think Elle had some really great character development and like finding out about her past, but I think a lot of like everyone else, like it kind of was very minimal, and kind of was reliant on just kind of stuff we've seen from previous seasons without that going anywhere. But I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know, like character development. I would agree. Probably like the Max arc was well done, and now that song is everywhere and everyone. It's on the radio. It's the running up the hill. But yeah, no, like I thought that was pretty well done. Like dealing with the loss and the guilt. The whole, Vecna hunting you based on your guilt trips is interesting. Like, as this kind of thing, as a kind of metaphor for these personal failures that haunt you for your life, and then they can pull you down into kind of a spiral, and then that you can't get out of. And then Max kind of like gets out of it with like remembering there's people around that care, and there's connection to the earthly realm, and I thought that was one of the positive things. Somebody asked, we did talk about anti-communism, so trying to say at least a few positive things, but yeah, Max's development. I really don't like that Mr. Daddy, Mr. Papa. That guy doesn't deserve any redemption. Please don't let that guy survive.
Yeah, what did you all think? Did you think that like, because someone was asking like, did he get a redemption arc? And you all see it, what happened to him as a redemption arc, or do you think it's like kind of like what he deserves.
I don't know. Like personally, I'm not sure what exactly. I don't know where it's all going, but it was like this guy got like too many chances. Like this guy is a total creep. But yeah, I don't know. I have to probably wait till season 5 is done and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, we don't see him die, so I feel like he's gonna come back. Cause like we don't see like the fade out where like I feel like in TV shows, if we don't like have like a confirmed death where we like see someone and they like and die, like they're coming back. Like, I knew Hopper was coming back. Like I feel like did you all know? Like I feel like when I saw that, I was like, I saw Billy get like that death happen, and we saw the person that Joyce was dating who played Sam in Lord of the Rings get eaten up by little things, and I was like, those people are gone. But we did not see Hopper go, and he's definitely coming back. So I feel like with this scientist, like definitely they're probably gonna tuck him away for something later. But I really like felt I really hope they don't give him a redemption arc. And I really liked how like he like tried to talk to Elle and was like, "Elle, you must know I did this all for you because I love you and I care about you all." And it's like, "You must understand, right?" And then Elle just like doesn't say anything and like walks away. And like that felt like so real to me. And like that felt like just kind of like people like, because like obviously like he's such a piece of shit. Like he's someone who, you know, has kidnapped these kids and experimented on them, and then also like makes them call him Pop or whatever. Like that's weird and really messed up. And also like he's probably so, you know, sociopathic or something like that. Like there's something really extreme going on there where like through his world's view, like everything he is doing in his mind probably is for love, but he lacks the ability to like have empathy and see that he's hurting people. But I think that's just like really real, because I think there's ways that people really hurt people, and like you almost want to like there's like people like I guess like I'm saying like in my life who have hurt me so badly, and I also like have some sort of like love for them, and I'm also just like, but you've hurt me in this way where I know to never fuck with you again. And it's like kind of tragic actually, because I think people have this idea that if you've been hurt, then you should say goodbye and that's easy. And I love how it's like a little bit painful. Like this person's done horrible things to Elle, horrible. And also that's someone she calls Pop, and it's like a bit complicated. So I really, really liked that scene where she just like holds his hand and she's like, goodbye. And I was like, damn, that hit really hard. And I really liked it. Someone was saying that in season 1, Jonathan stalked Nancy, and I haven't seen season 1 in so long that I can't remember. Yeah, does anyone remember if there was any stalking? I feel like that happens a lot where it's like stalking for romance.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, Jonathan is kind of going around and taking pictures of
That's right.
her, and that's creepy. And but you know, it's kind of like you know, it's one of those weird things where it's kind of like this is like it's a white American dude's version of reality, which is like the oppression is I'm too weird to get a girlfriend, so I'm gonna be creepy and go around and take pictures of girls, and that's totally cool and normal.
It's fine.
You know, it's fine.
Nothing
you know,
wrong
it's
there.
like, you know, it's like, you know, but that was like in the 80s, speaking of retro 80s and 90s and 90s movies, right? I mean, it's like if you look at the lesson of how, you know, that's a question that is being asked all the time now. It's like as people are getting upset at women, blaming women for everything, including like not unionizing good enough at Starbucks and all this other stuff. And you know, and it's kind of like this, like the problem is that I can't get a date. You know, I'm a dude and I can't get a date or get laid. And that's the worst thing. And you know what? The secret is just keep following girls around, like Ryan Gosling in The
taking
Notebook.
pictures, and eventually it'll work out.
Just keep creeping on them. Just keep chasing them around forever. You know, hold the boombox. You know, like in the other movie with John Cusack, and just like blast it out their window. And that's a cool, normal thing to do, is to chase people around after they said no and said you don't have consent for any of this, and just chase them around for years. And it's like that's like really messed up and weird patriarchal stuff. And like, I mean, I as somebody who was raised to be a dude in the United States, it's like it's so normalized that I think that like a lot of people just miss that. It's like, oh, it's so cute that he's taking pictures of women.
It's not. Yeah, there was like this time, like this is like a little bit personal, but I like had dated someone and then we broke up, and then um I like we like got in touch again, and I was like, yeah, like I just really need a friend, not looking for anything. And they like I said this like very explicitly multiple times, and then I like and they just didn't leave me though. Like it blew my mind. Like I was like they kept on trying to hold my hand or kiss me, and I was like, yeah, so like we talked about again, I'm just looking for a friend. And I was like super depressed and emotionally vulnerable, and there was a point where I was just like actually like really angry, where I was like, I need a friend right now, and you're not taking that seriously, and you keep on like, and this person keeps on making advances in a way that I explicitly said, hey, I'm not looking for that. And I eventually was like, I'm not going to talk with you anymore. And they were shocked. They were shocked. They were like they couldn't believe it, even though I had so explicitly said this. And it was like an extreme. It was, to me, it was like just like a very painful thing to have happened. But I see stuff like in Stranger Things, like, you know, like Jonathan taking a picture and everyone being like, oh, that's cute. And like there's like so many things I see in media that kind of normalizes behavior, where it's like, well, even if someone's not expressing interest, or even if someone like is saying no, like you just kind of, there's like this idea of the chase, like you just have to keep on chasing this person, and their input isn't necessarily relevant to the chase. You just got to keep on doing it. And yeah, I think when I see media like that, it really just gets to me, because I see the effects of that in person all the time. And yeah, it's not okay. Uh yeah, anyways.
And we're sort of supposed to be grateful that this man is even paying attention to us.
Yeah,
Right.
like you should be glad that someone's following you around and taking pictures. It's because they capri, and it's like, maybe, you know, just like for a lot of people that would probably be really uncomfortable if that happened, and it doesn't need to be taken as a compliment. So no, yeah, it's an extremely messed up behavior that I wish modern media did a better job with, or like showed people falling in love without having to do something toxic first. Like this is like a little bit tangential, but like I used to read so much romance when I was younger, especially in middle school. I would read a lot of romance manga. And looking back, like there was so much in there that was just literally abuse. Like I literally read this one. It wasn't actually a manga because it was Korean, and I think there's like a different word for it. But there was this one, oh, it's called Goong, and it was like fantasizing about like what would happen in the future if there was like still like a queen, king and queen, and like a royal family. And there was like this scene where like the love interest like literally like picks up this person and just throws her in a fountain, and he's like really, really horrible to her. But then she like fixes him because she falls in love, and he falls in love with her too. And because they fall in love, they don't even have to talk about that whole throwing in the fountain thing, because they're into each other now. And I was just like, yeah, there's so many things where it's like that is primarily being read by, you know, teenage girls, and they're reading a story about someone literally being abusive, but if they can just get this person to love them back, then it's going to be okay. And that's like obviously a recipe for disaster. But I digress. We don't have to start talking about all these other things. But yeah, Stranger Things definitely messed up with Jonathan stalking Nancy.
And in the new season, there was the relationship between Chrissy and again I don't remember his name, but he was the head of the basketball team.
Oh, Jason.
Is it Jason? Like he blamed everyone else for what happened to her. When they confronted him about her buying drugs from Eddie, he just didn't want to believe it. And Lucas tried so many times to be honest with them, and it seemed like a very toxic dynamic in their team because no one would speak up. And then when Patrick spoke up, they made fun of him because he was starting to have nightmares. And then he was the next person to die. And guess who helped him through that? It was Eddie, the person who was helping Chrissy also, and like I think it was really toxic, and it's sort of like this like white knight thing where, oh, he was going to come and rescue her, and she was like sort of innocent and naive, and she didn't actually do any of these things, when really that was the reason why she was at Eddie's home, was because she was doing drugs, but it was for different reasons. I also had an issue with that because the way that they portrayed or like handled drugs and addiction, like I would excuse it if it was just Jason that was saying, oh, that's bad, or like Eddie's a bad person because he sold drugs. But then even Will said about Argyle that we shouldn't listen to him because he's just like, super high. It's like, what? That he just went through a very traumatic experience. He just saw someone die.
That was super. Like, on one hand, I thought Argyle's reaction, like when he would be like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," because like there's this kind of like, the joke is that like these people have all kind of like been through the rodeo of saving the world before, and so like Argyle's like new, and like that's something that can like kind of see like the joke in itself being endearing. And then on the other hand, it's like there's this kind of like, I think this is like a facet of like toxic masculinity where it's like, oh, come on, toughen up. Like, and it's like, well, like, no, like this person has now seen a bunch of people be killed right in front of his eyes. And he thought he was just coming by to, drop off pizza or hang out or something. And like, now you've just seen a bunch of dead bodies. And like I wish the show had actually been like empathetic towards that person's experience instead of just kind of having this like view of like, oh, you just need to toughen up, because these are things that are just like genuinely really traumatizing. And I understand like it's a show and it may not want to deal with the heaviness, but there's no way that like all these people are not traumatized by all the death that they've seen. And yeah, I do wish they did a better job like handling all that. Yeah, but one thing, like going back to my gosh, Eddie is I Eddie and like Chrissy's boyfriend, the basketball player person, like I really appreciated how there was that one moment where Lucas was like being like, hey, like Chrissy actually did see Eddie to do because she wanted to buy drugs. And then I forgot his name, but like the boyfriend was like, she would never do that. And then Lucas was like, no, that's what she was doing. And then he was like, well, like if she was in trouble, like why wouldn't she come and talk to me? And I like that they don't like explicitly say that, because like you kind of fill in the blanks as like, because you're a dick. Because like, why would someone come to you? But I like that they kind of address, I feel like in some ways they kind of address the toxic masculinity, or like what I would call toxic masculinity. I think the show would probably just say like, oh, well, this person is just a jerk. But to me, like those are very like toxic traits specifically. But I like how they show that realization, like, well, why wouldn't she talk to me? And it's like, yeah, Chrissy didn't feel safe to talk to you, but she did feel safe to talk to Eddie. Also, I really love Eddie.
Yep. Yeah, just just like on that on the Jason is, I'm pretty sure that's Jason is the basketball team leader, and the boyfriend of Chrissy. Yeah, another thing about that is like because in that moment where he's speaking to the investigators and they're like, did you know where was Chrissy? And he's all like, well, this had to be what happened, because Chrissy doesn't do drugs. Chrissy's my girlfriend. Chrissy would come to me, and like, these are his expectations. And there's like a moment where he could be like, oh no, did I like screw up as a toxic dude? And he could like as the Mr. Varsity Jacket, it's kind of implied he's like, he's the boy whose daddy is probably the biggest corporate executive type person that runs the mining company or whatever. He's he's like the star quarterback, star basketball player, prom king character with the prom queen Chrissy, who is also like, part of her thing is she's being pressured, right, to fit the mold of the prom queen, Miss America, right? And that's the kind of her own, like when Vecna comes for her, right? it's like you're getting too fat, Chrissy. You're not gonna look perfect. You're not gonna fit. So it's kind of this like, and so she's kind of like her guild is kind of like not meeting the expectations of patriarchal capitalist American, the greatest country in the world society. There's all these opportunities to redo that whole entire season, and you can tell a much more deeper story. But anyways, but Chrissy is like that, and then Vecna comes as she's having guilt trips. He weaves his spider web of slithering wetly tentacles up into her brainstem and takes her. But like there's the point where Jason could have said like, hey, maybe I should have been better, but instead he goes, you know what, it's that demon worshiping Eddie. He did it. He it's not like Chrissy could have been going to Eddie, because Eddie is just a really nice person who is nice to, he's really nice to the cheerleaders. He's just like a normal, it's kind of a lot when he's doing D&D, but he's a dungeon master. You've got to be a performer. You got to be you got to be a dramatist, to have a good, Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I mean, speaking as a weird nerd that does those kind of things. So, but Eddie is he's actually like pretty good. And that's why a lot of people like Eddie, because he's like, he does provide a place for all the weirdos, right? For various reasons in high school. Like, maybe you're a person of color, maybe you're just like really awkward, maybe just like you're just not cool for whatever reason, right? You're getting bullied like 11 is in California, right? And so Eddie creates the space, like, that's what I used to, that's who I was kind of like Eddie in high school. I was like, I literally had an electric guitar and I played all these more of them were computer games, but I kind of led this weird, all goth PLC group and club, and all these weirdos would come hang out who didn't fit in with the rest of the prom kings and the prom queens and the wannabes, right? And the jocks, the people who party, or
like the alt POC panels you got right now.
Yeah, that's exactly. I am Eddie. I'm like indigenous Eddie, and I'm better at guitar. So anyway, I'm just kidding. I don't want to have a Master Puppets guitar duel, but we'll see about that. Anyways, but it's like anyways. Also, Bridgerton star, the Carmichael from The Gray Man, the Bridgerton star. What the heck's his name? He's going to be in Dungeons and Dragons. He said he was Eddie in school. I forget what his name is. The actor, Reggie. He's Zimbabwean, raised in the UK. He said he was a black person in the UK. He said I was the weird goth nerd who played Diablo, Chrono Trigger, and played loud metal guitar in London because I was on the outskirts as a person of color in the United Kingdom, and I identified so much with Eddie in Stranger Things. Anyways, that's just another aside. How that's a common theme. And I think that like, and part of that is like when you like you try to make space for people who are not accepted under cis heteronormative patriarchal settler colonial capitalist etc. world, you like, you just like, not to say that you're going to be like, oh, the best person in the world and you're going to save the world, but just like you're more available and open and like try to take, like he tells like Dustin, you guys have to take care. You have to round up all these lost sheep. Okay. So you guys go find some more to play this campaign, right? So we have a space for people who don't fit in because they're queer, because they're not white, because they're just, for whatever reason, they're not fitting in. And so, and anyway, so coming back to Jason, and like Jason as Mr. Perfect, blonde hair, blue eyed, Aryan capitalist American basketball star, right? With his perfect prom queen girlfriend who doesn't really want to be that, but has to pretend to be that, right? Could be like, interrogate that. But instead, he goes on a witch hunt, right? And gets the whole town riled up and just says, what we have to do is not understand people that are different, not understand people that are, why is their hair long? I don't care. They're satanic. And we have to rile all this town up and go on big speeches, right? He gives one to the church, to he says to the high school basketball team, these guys are coming to kill us, right? Look at all those news reports. We gotta rid our town of these satanic freaks like Eddie. And that's going to solve the problems, right? But the problems are actually internal, which is, again, but which is the problem of the United States. The problem is I got to go into somewhere else and blow someone else up where there are bad people in the rest of the world. There's communists in Russia. There's terrorists in the Middle East. The Chinese are coming for me right now. I got to go save the world by killing someone, right? It's like literally a metaphor for the entire U.S. capitalist patriarchal society. But, and if you read it, that's the way I read it, but it's like, anyway, so long story short, like then everything else kind of like misses, but there's like so much opportunity there because that's like so much of what's actually going on in the US then and now. So anyway.
Yeah. I think that's the thing with Stranger Things. Like I came away being like, wow, like I actually really, really love this show. And then there's things that it just like really really misses. And it's like tragic because I want to just kind of like love the show in an uncomplicated way. But yeah, there's these things that it feels complicated.
I wonder if they have people consulting on the show, because I recently saw a Nope, and I feel like a lot of those themes are executed really well because Jordan Peele has personal experience with. I don't want to get into spoilers or anything, but if you've seen any of his other films, then you understand that. But yeah, I wonder if there are like people consulting on Stranger Things that are queer or lesbians or, anyone that isn't a white person.
Yeah, I wonder that too. I feel like if there are like what does it even like I wondered about this. Yeah, but like even this comment here from Alice L says God the fact that the show also uncritically had the basketball leader try to detain Lucas and his sister in the same way a cop would. Like, yeah, I thought that too. I actually just watched the episode today because I just finished it up today for the panel. And like, yeah, I was like totally thinking about that and was just like, oh, these people are like cops. And this seems also like racist and but also like the show's not going to deal with this or even like acknowledge like any of these racial elements. So, kind of going back to what you're saying, Randis, like it's like, yeah, like are there people that they're consulting being like, hey, like, this is in the show. Maybe you could talk about these racial elements because these racial elements are there. And can you actually unpack this instead of just leave it hanging? And this is what I was wondering too. Like, I'm wondering what y'all think about. Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't remember people's names, but the person who's friends with Steve and they are just platonic friends, and she's kind of cheering for Nancy and Steve, and she's in a
Maya Hawke.
band. Maya?
No, the actor is Maya Hawke. I know you're
Okay.
talking
Let me look. Sorry, I meant to like have like a name list.
about. Robin.
Robin. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's lesbian in the show.
Yeah, like I thought I kind of like I mean I obviously like wanted to see more and I kind of immediately knew that we weren't going to see that much. It kind of bothered me that like the whole time like she's just like cheering on Steve and Nancy and I'm like, can we get some Robin time? Like she has a crush on this person that we see once at the beginning and then we see once at the end. And I thought when we do see that her love interest, like I thought it was like really sweet because like she was also like her love interest like talking like really fast and you could tell she was nervous and you're like, oh, that's like really cute. But I also was like, I would like some more, which I just kind of immediately knew I wasn't gonna get what I wanted out of this. Like, and they saved everything to the end, and then they have a cute little thing where they run into each other and it's cute, and then that's it. And I'm like, great. Robin just spent the whole season babysitting the relationship of Nancy and Steve. And yeah. So I mean, again, like did they consult any queer people about this? And if they did, they probably just ignored everything. Like that's what I guess if they are consulting Black and queer and non-white people, I feel like these people are being like, hey, maybe you could actually like put some more stuff in there instead of just kind of having them babysit like a heteronormative relationship. And like I feel like the Duffer Brothers were just like, no, like we just don't want to do that. It's like if there are people consulting them, I feel like they constantly must be like, oh, this just isn't that important, or we're not going to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, like, I feel like, like, I love touching that topic. Like, where is the angle of this show? Or like, I mean, even if it's not like the runners aren't people of color, queer, etc. But did they consult? And even if you consult, as somebody, as an Indigenous person, we're getting hit up all the time. Like, even like I was talking to one of my fellow game developers, like Microsoft, Facebook, they're all like trying to consult to be like, make our company look less racist against Indigenous people or against whatever your marginalized group. And then they'll pay you a little bit, or maybe not. They'll just like ask for free work for you to make it look like, just like reflect on this character, this art. is that anti-Hawaiian or is that anti-indigenous? And whatever you say, it's kind of like they don't really care, sometimes. It's just kind of like we just did our due diligence, so we're not racist because we talked to an indigenous person, and 9 out of 10 indigenous people that we talk to recommend this Microsoft or whatever, this movie or this show. And there's a lot of BS like that. And that it's just like, it's almost like this like little chore that media companies, entertainment companies, etc., have to do, right? And that's like not authentic, actual like caring about the input, right? Because even if you get the input, and I feel like I feel like what I've read of like the show runners, it's like they one of the things that was kind of really kind of weird and creepy was like the actor that plays Max was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do any kiss in scenes in one of the seasons. I forget which one it was. And the dubbers were like, oh, you don't want to kiss? We're gonna make you kiss. We're gonna make you kiss
that blew
Lucas.
my mind.
And it was like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's just kind of, I mean, that the attitude that's like I've heard from that is like not willing to hear input, and in fact like creepily just having this weird kind of like narcissistic control freak thing. I just want to control you people to make you do, because I'm the showrunner, I can make you actors do whatever I want. It's kind of like that didn't I just didn't sit well just generally. And then we've already kind of talked about some of its problems. Anyway, that's my feeling anyway.
Well, yeah, totally. When they had, so in the show, like when Max is like having like this kind of like flashback, like they're running up that hill song, and then it's like playing all these things that like she wants to live for, having flashbacks where she's hanging out with Elle, having flashbacks where, with her friends. And one of the things that she flashbacks to is when she kissed Lucas. And it's just like, that just kind of disturbed me because the actress really didn't want to do that. And I know that happens a lot in movies, unfortunately, where like there are, an actress, especially like with kids too, which is like extra disturbing. Like people like won't want to kiss someone, and like they just like have to. They're just like put in a position where they are forced to, I should say. And it's just like really messed up. So it really bothered me that they show that again with all the conversations people have had around it, being like, it's not cool to make a kid kiss someone that they don't want to kiss. And yeah, that's something that just really bothered me. This is a little bit off topic, but like something that like I wanted to talk about, and this is in season 3, like so I just thought of like Max and Elle become friends in season 3, and it really bothered me that Max and Elle bond over like this mall that was established. Like they go to the mall and they do all these like typical mall things, like buy clothes and eat ice cream and talk about boys. And it just really bothered me that like, because like neither of them have shown interest in these things. But like, for example, like Max like skateboards all the time. You always see Max skateboarding. And I think it would have been really cool if like Max and Elle maybe were, became friends, where like maybe Elle got into skateboarding, and then like Max like showed her how to skateboard, and then they both started skateboarding. Like that would have been something that like that was really cool, and something that Max is already interested in, and it would have made sense to like expand on her character. But instead, Max and Elle bond over going to the mall, and they kind of bond over doing like typical girl things. And like that's not necessarily bad, but it's just like that's not something that their characters have ever expressed interest in. And it just kind of seems like some dudes were like, oh, this is like what girls want. These are preteen girls, and they're gonna bond by going to the mall and gabbing about boys and getting into makeup and things like that. So I just kind of thought that was like lazy writing and like a missed opportunity to kind of expand on Max's interests and like have them bond over something that is a part of at least Max's character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did seem forced.
Yeah.
And you're right. Neither one of them were particularly femme, I guess, or like were really interested in, I guess what you would say are like traditionally for things that girls are interested in. So it didn't make sense.
Yeah, I just felt like a bit out of place. One thing that I like though, so this is like kind of random. I'm just looking at my notes a bit, but I really liked that Robin and Steve ended up just being like platonic friends, because I feel like you don't really see that happen that much between guys and girls, and it kind of sucks that like they had to be friends just because. Oh, sweet! I didn't even notice you're wearing your Eddie outfit. Nice.
I got my Hellfire Club just for this, and
Oh, that's
Nice. Oh my
awesome.
gosh. I was really hoping you were gonna wear your outfit.
Yeah.
I'm really glad.
I got my whole I got Holly, my partner, helped me make this. So that's a bat. So I got like all of my demonic. That's a Terminator reference. That's a for the game players. That's the floppy disk for Doom. Anyways,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
this is my personal Eddie cosplay when I go to the Comic-Con, and when we do the Nope or whatever next one we do, I'm gonna show up in that. Anyway,
Where did you get
Yeah.
the shirt?
That's awesome.
oh, the shirt. I don't know. Holly got the Hellfire Club. I think you can just. I think they have the Hellfire Club shirts somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. Ask Holly. Yeah,
Oh, you can order online?
yeah, you can order it online. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It looks sweet. Oh yeah, but yeah, I really like that they were like friends, because it's like just I feel like you just don't I feel like you just rarely ever see that. And it kind of sucks that they like were friends because well, it's like, oh, where I was like, I'm a lesbian, so like it's not gonna work out. But I also like that they still are friends, because I feel like it's also very common for a lot of guys to only be interested in a woman if there's gonna be like a romantic relationship involved, or like something sexual. So it was like I just thought it was really sweet that they just continued being friends. And yeah, I like really want to see more of that. I think for me, like growing up, it was like really like I don't know. I think for me, like just like in real life, it's like really jarring, because like I'll think that I'm friends with someone, and then like something will be clear. I'm like, oh, like this person has a romantic expectation or a sexual expectation, and if I make it clear, like if I make it clear that that's not something I'm interested in, then that person a lot of times will just kind of become like aggressive or something like that. Like it usually does not end in friendship. So I thought that was very sweet, and hopefully like yeah, I would really like also things to not be like so segregated by gender. Like I think there's like a way where people a lot of times will be like, well, I'm a girl, so I hang out with girls. Like I'm a guy, so I'm gonna hang out with guys. And I really love it when people can just hang out. I think it's really weird how like friends are like literally like are very often divided into gender or like by gender. I just thought that was really great that they like it showed like a friendship like that. Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to talk about? I'm kind of just saying like random tidbits that are popping in my head. But yeah, anything that anyone is thinking of talking about?
Let me think of it. There's anything that we missed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of directions you can go. I mean, just like on the, I could probably talk forever about Eddie. In fact, I've talked for 4 hours about Eddie previously.
I fucking love Eddie.
But yeah, it's like, I think there's a reason why there's a lot of gravitation. Like, like when Our Flag Means Death, there's a lot of there's a huge fan explosion, lots of fan art. And I'm seeing like a similar explosion of fan art, especially from like the queer non-white community. Not exclusively, of course, but like for those kind of reasons, because like Eddie does like represent like in a lot of ways. I think actually another interesting thing about Eddie was the Duffers actually said that he was originally written to be more hateable, like not likable. They pictured him more like, I think, the unlikable geek in the 80s, like Breakfast Club era movies. There's certain characters that were like they were like kind of not sympathetic, nerdy weirdos. And that's the way that the Duffers wrote Eddie. But then the actor Joseph Quinn was like reading Eddie, was going like, I think actually Eddie is more, they actually said like a lot of the lines were like improved by Joseph Quinn, and the way that he was,
wow.
yeah, the way that he was doing them was like Eddie was becoming more likable. And it's interesting how some people like.
That's interesting. Like, sorry.
Yeah,
okay. Well, that's just at the beginning of the show. Like he's a dick. Like he's like, listen up. Like all those people up there, they're conforming. And it was just kind of like, but yeah, but like people are kind of also conforming in the Hellfire to you because you're kind of the person in charge. And then that kind of like dominating energy that he had, like completely goes away, I think, like pretty much like the next few episodes. Like with Chrissy, he's really sweet. He becomes really sweet with I forget everyone's name. But like the younger people that are like in the Hellfire Club.
Oh, Dustin and
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. I'm so sorry. I like forgot the whole cast name. But yeah, like he's really sweet. Anyways, didn't mean to
Let's
interrupt.
keep on.
Oh no, it's like actually that whole intro, like, you know, there are actually some people who were like, they didn't like because of the way that he kind of is in that beginning, where he's like the head honcho of the geeks, and there is I think he was written to kind of be like, there's actually speaking of Tom Morello, I brought up Rage Against the Machine, and Tom Morello released a movie called Metal Lords, which is also about metalheads, but it's actually just came out, and there's also kind of like a you can see where the Duffers are going, because in that movie there's a metalhead, right, who also has a electric guitar, and he's very snobbish and into his specific music, and if you're not serious enough, and there's a little bit of that where, you know, Eddie kind of questions Erica, what did you bring a little kid to the big boys nerd club? You know, it's kind of like, are you really serious? This is not just a little, you know, tea party, right? And Erica like gives him back the energy, like, you know, let's go. I'm a level 14 kukri wielding elf, and I will backstab any mother, you know, like, and Erica's like, I know what I'm talking about, right? And then you know, so Eddie kind of like has that kind of like an energy that might be a little bit off-putting to, and I could see like Joseph Quinn could have played it much more hateable, but it's importantly, like after Erica goes, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know how the experience points work. I know how many magic missiles I could shoot. I'm just, you know, I am not a fake nerd geek girl. I am for real, you know. So get this misogyny, you know. Don't be judging me, right? I'm just because I'm a little
as
kid.
a black nerd girl person who I really appreciated that. I was like, you fucking tell him.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, and so like, if Eddie really was like a real dick, because in somebody said, Edward Funk says, you watch Metal Lords too? Okay, well, you know what I'm talking about, because I've been in metal bands. I've had those metal band mates who are like, you know, Silver Spook, that song is like too, and they say like F slur, that's like not intense enough, and I was like, what? And I was like, screw you, man. I mean, like, you know, it's like, it just kind of like macho nerd patriarchal stuff that's kind of like bleeding into the club, and it gets really weird. Not always, but it happens, right? Because I mean, especially with like things like D&D and metal, because you're already on the outs of the society, and then you're like very, very skilled. It takes a lot of time, especially to play like hard songs and to master all the rules and stuff. It's like, it's a lot of time and energy investment. So it's like, you haven't invested as much time and energy as me, so you're not really part, you know, this weird in-group out-group thing that happens. And so like, anyway, so back to that. And in Metal Lords is a real dickhead guy. And that's the whole point of that thing, is like, Tom Morello is like, I'm sure Tom Morello as an electric guitarist, play lots of bands, you know, he's from like, you know, upper Midwest. I'm sure he's deal with a lot of dickheads like that. Actually, in fact, I know he did. But anyways, but Eddie could have like doubled down on that and just been like, well, because Erica kind of shows him up, right? And he's just like, well, get out of here, you little kid, or something, right? That would have been a top, like that's what Jason does, right? He gets kind of called on. I mean, like I said earlier, like Jason could go, oh crap, I'm wrong on this, right? Just like interrogate his own failings, or I don't know, something. But Jason just goes, he just goes, no, screw this, and he just like double down and goes like, no, we're just gonna go get that freak, you know. And Eddie could have just been like, get out of here, you little girl, stop embarrassing me in front of all of the people, right? But Eddie just goes, oh well, I guess you know what you're talking about. So, you know, so that's like the redeemable. That's what makes him more. He just comes out of, he's a big personality, and he's very serious about the club, and he's not like unfair to people, you know. I guess that's the thing, because there's another way that he could have played that character where he's just like a total unredeemable dick, and you would feel it would change the whole tone of the show, because Eddie is like everyone's chasing Eddie, and where's help, we got to help you out, Eddie, right? But you know, and at the end, you know, well, I don't want to give everything away, but it's kind of like a lot of things would work way different if Eddie was like a unredeemable dickheady sort of character. Anyway, that's just my
It'd be such a different show. Yeah. I mean, I do think that's really annoying that he like had to be like, what are you? You're just a kid. Cause it's like almost every time I do like I have all these hobbies that are extremely male dominated, and I don't even really realize it. And then I play a lot of Smash, and I used to just go to competitions, and I don't and like I'm not like a competitive smasher. Like I'm all right. Like I'm I'll win some, I'll lose some. But I would like to just go for the social aspect. Anyway, sorry, I'm kind of rambling. But like whenever I would go, like people would be like, well, why are you here? And I'd be like, well, I'm here to play Smash. And they'd be like, but why? Like, and I remember one time I was like, oh, like me and my boyfriend just thought it'd be fun. And they're like, oh, okay, your boyfriend brought you here. And I was like, no, I brought my boyfriend here. And it was just like every time I would go, there is just something just weird. And I like a lot of prog metal and just all these things where it's like I have to like always explain to men like why I'm there. And I'm like, it's just not really complicated. Like I just like these things. And so yeah, when Eddie did that in Stranger Things, like, why are you here? Like that did really, really, really bother me. But I really liked Erica's reaction to that because she kind of was like not gonna deal with that shit. But also like I'm really glad like in the next episodes, like he doesn't like gatekeep nerddom. Like they kind of just drop that whole thing together. And I'm really glad they did that because I wouldn't have been able to handle that. Even though he can be like amenable and be like, oh, okay, like you've proven your point, you're in the crowd. Like I couldn't have handled him doing that throughout the entire show. But he doesn't. And he's actually like really sweet. He's like, I always run. And I'm like, no, like, I don't know. Like, I guess in some ways he does, but like he wanted to help Chrissy out. And well, yeah, he also was like flirting with her. And like when people are flirting with someone, they're gonna obviously be nice to you. But then he like kind of continued being nice to people. And I just really appreciated that about Eddie.
Yeah, and like, and I like the first when he goes on his big speech in the high school where he's reading the news article and getting upset, and it's like, you know, some people are like, you know, I mean, he is like very like loud in that scene and kind of but it's kind of like if you look at it from like, you know, from his perspective, like he runs the Dungeons and Dragons club, and there's all these news articles that are coming out saying that he is the devil that is causing all of these kids in the Hellfire Club, right? The article is saying to commit crime and sodomy and murder and you know, drug abuse. I think it's one of the things that's mentioned. It's causing all it. The Dungeons and Dragons is destroying our kids and turning them to the will of the Dark Lord's army and Satan. And so you know, he's you know, he's like upset in that scene anyway. So I think like, you know, some people are like, you know, he's kind of like upset at all of the society where, you know, your conformity is what is the problem, which is not incorrect. But yeah, but then anyway, so yeah, after the first episode, it really changes, and yeah. So anyway, I just agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, this is another random thing. I'm like just looking through my notes of the show. This is like a bit of a spoiler, so spoiler alert. It really bothered me that Vecna's backstory, like I thought that was like really not like I thought that was like a horrible backstory. So like the main like people who are watching, like the main bad guy Vecna like says his backstory and he's like, yeah, like I really hated how people just kept on working and also I like spiders, so I just like murdered my whole family. And I'm like, what? Like that was just like, I don't know. I just kind of hate this is like a pet peeve of mine where like the bad guy will just like have a really weird backstory where they're like, I don't know. It'll always just be like something that's like just so out of touch and like doesn't seem to like understand like why people like lash out and hurt people. But that just seemed really weak to me. And I wish that they like had something I wish they had like that. I wish it was like something that like was actually like a real criticism of the world. But it was just kind of like I don't know. None of that's like unvalid. It's like, yeah, people kind of work a lot and are slaves to time, but it all just felt kind of forced and really rushed. And yeah, any thoughts on the main bad guy?
I saw the actor what's I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but the Vecna actor is like really creeped out by how many people are really attracted to Vecna. And it's like, but anyways, that's a kind of
no. I was like, okay, there was like a lot of tentacle stuff in here, and I was like, I know people are gonna be weird about this. Like, yeah,
like it's like was it Carnage in the Venom movie? Or, you know, tentacles slithering wetly, you know, squelching, squishing. I mean, the
Mhm.
subtitles in the beginning, I was like, am I watching a porn? Or is this a Netflix
Yeah.
original series or what? Is this
I was
porn?
like,
What's
there's
happening here? I clicked on the wrong place in the Rule 34, but you know, it's like, anyways. But Vecna's character, like, definitely, I think it's a little bit of it could have been better handled. I think it's like kind of ties into what else. I think I think I brought it up earlier, where it's like it's the problem. You know, it's like the problem is the world is that I work in an office and the Xerox machine broke, and it's kind of like it's not really clear. It's just like I'm trapped in what my privileged upper middle class life in America. I mean, what, in Hawkins, Indiana, in the middle of the
yeah, and
20th
like you're a
century?
little
What is your
kid.
problem?
Like you should be
Yeah.
happy. I don't know, but he's like, yeah, people work all the time and are slaves to the clock, and I'm like, but you're a kid, and like he hasn't, like, you haven't had that you probably haven't quite had that experience yet, given, like, yeah, especially like your class privilege that you clearly have, and like you probably are in a phase of life where like you haven't experienced being a slave to the clock in a way that would make you resent society. And then he was also like, I like spiders, and they're like the the harshest predator, and I wanted to be just like a spider and kill everyone. I'm like, what? How'd you like connect spiders and like killing your family? Like, I don't know.
I know he
Anyways, I cut you
mentioned
off.
oh, he
Sorry.
he did talk about his dad, right? And some of his dad's war crimes, which would justify him being angry with his father, but it doesn't really explain why he killed his mom or his sister.
Yeah, he was like, I wanted to show them like their true selves,
Hmm.
and I'm like, but why? Is that something to do with the spiders, or like does the clock? The clock was creepy though. It was creepy, but I was also kind of just like, how I wish there was like a better story. I think it's really interesting, like when you like look at history, like how people are either the good guy or the bad guy based on who won, and like just like how complicated that all is, and like the struggle for like actual like human happiness and autonomy. And like I think every time there's like a poorly written villain, it's a missed opportunity. And I thought he was just kind of like a basic villain, just like, I like spiders and I'm sick of clocks and I'm just gonna kill everyone. And I'm like, well, okay, I really wish there was some more, but he looks very creepy.
Yeah, this is kind of a random aside, you know, for like horror nerds. But Freddy Krueger, the actor who played Freddy Krueger, his name Robert Englund, plays actual Victor Creel, and he's obviously Vecna as a reference to Freddy Krueger, who kills you in the night in your dreams, comes into your mind, and he's very deeply scarred person. Although Vecna is missing a nose, and has more tentacles. But it's a very Freddy Krueger like sort of character. I don't remember, but you know, like a lot of the '80s slasher, a lot of '80s horror, I think Halloween is specifically referenced. Michael Myers comes up. I don't know, there was a lot of like, I mean, that era. I was thinking like there's an era in the '70s and '80s of like mental health disorders, right? And in these institutions, it's all of these people, and if they get out, there's a there's a lot of that was a real scare, right? It was like we have to be careful of all of these people. We don't really understand them, but if they get out, they're murderers, and a lot of them, and the Manson, along with the Satanic Panic, was kind of this like, which went along with like the the U.S. trying to deal with the countercultural movements, and some of that was anti-communism, and kind of like branding. I remember there was a concerted effort along with the drug war, which is about basically saying black people and commies and all these hippies, we're gonna slap drugs on them and we're gonna put them all away. And then there's a lot of really bad people out there. So don't let your kids go out and do any organizing out in one of these weird places, right? Playing D&D, they're out there, and your kids might get eaten by a Manson or one of these horrible. When you go communism, everybody just gets killed. And there's kind of like there was a lot of like, I don't know, there's just like extra fear mongering around mental health, drug use, how that ties together, which also goes along with the anti-black, anti-indigenous, anti-queerness. That kind of like, I don't know. I'm a little bit like, I don't have like all of the my train of thought is not like fully taking this train together, but I think that like a lot of the movies of that time were, you know, definitely there was something subversive. So there was an ulterior motive, kind of like how with the anti-communism, that's just kind of subversively just kind of permeating everything. There was a kind of unaddressed aspect, and I think there's just kind of like, people are bad because, I don't know, they eat spiders and clocks and who knows, but we need a lot of police and institutions to put them in. And anyways, so there's something very not good happening there. Like, generally, I don't know if that's specifically Stranger Things. Stranger Things is referencing again like the 70s and 80s culture, and anyways, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a moral panic. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there's like definitely like a lot of moral panic in 60s, 70s, mostly 70s and 80s, like reaction to the counterculture. And I think horror movies were a way for people who were othered in society to express that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about that. Wow, yeah, because like, honestly, like, when I think of horror, like, I have nightmares, like, almost every night, and I'm like, "Wow, this would make, like, a really good horror movie." Um, but I think a lot of those dreams that I have are, like, uh, about, like, yeah, like, kinda, like, feeling, I guess you could say, like, ostracized from something, like, a lack of control, um and horror is like just a really good way to express that, like, especially the people who are like on the fringe of society. So I that makes a lot of sense that like people making horror would be like a way for those people to express that. Yeah, that's a really good observation.
Yeah, I don't want to be like, you know, horror is bad. No, because obviously, like, you know, there's lots of really good horror. Like, they live with Jordan Peele. Speaking of Nope, I'm sorry to take you on three different tangents at the same time. But Jordan Peele's Nope, which I'm sure I will get to watching it, and then we'll get to talking about it at some point. And all of his movies, like, you know, deal with like lots of very important topics. And John Carpenter was one of those people that was also doing horror in that time. And Jordan Peele actually said, he came out on Twitter and somebody said, Jordan Peele is the greatest horror movie director of all time. Look, he had 3 great horror movies in a row. And then Jordan Peele came out and said, like, I will not allow the smearing of John Carpenter's name.
Mm.
You know, because I mean, which, you know, because he was dealing with, speaking of anti-communism, right? As a kind of counterpoint to that, right? Like, there's a movie, They Live, that's about these kind of aliens that come in and they have vast quantities of money, and they're like manipulating everyone into over consuming and being capitalist cogs of the machine, and buy, consume, eat, you know, reproduce, especially if you're a white woman. And you know, it's just kind of like creepy. It's a horror movie where it's like capitalism, neoliberalism is like literally a alien invasion that's like possessing and controlling all of society. And that was, again, a horror movie. And that was a movie that was made for like $50. I don't know. It's like a very low budget movie. And so anyway, that was something as a kind of counterpoint to like, you just, like, there's lots of ways that you can do things that are not anti-communist, right? And also like saying other important things in the horror genre. You know, and that's like clear. And obviously all the Jordan Peele movies are like awesome examples of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's like so much potential. Like, I want to see more movies that are like unpacking racism, for example, like, and like how horrific it is. Because I think, to me, that's something that like has always felt so horrific. Like, for me, like, I grew up like learning about that racism is basically over, and uh like, especially being raised by white people, like, there was no one to be like, hey, like, you're gonna get treated this way, here's how you can handle it. And so there was like this like kind of realization of like, things are so fucked up, like, things are really 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 fucked up. And like that, there was like a point where that became super clear during like the first BLM uprising. And it was just like literally like seeing all these pictures of like black dead people, just like seeing like picture after picture after picture and being like, holy shit, this is happening like on a mass scale. And it was just so disturbing and haunting. And then it was just like kind of like trying to be like, hey, family and friends, like in my own personal life, I've experienced racism, and now I'm like seeing all these pictures of Black dead people all the time and learning that this is systemic and this massive issue. Can you please care about this? And can you please like stop being a part of the problem? And then everyone just being like super aggressive and being like, no, you're part of the problem. And all these Black people are part of the problem, and being like, holy shit, like these people are not going to care, and they're going to continue being a part of the issue. And it felt horrific. Like it felt like horrifying. And yeah, like that is like a horrifying experience. And like, yeah, there's just so much. I feel like I want to see like an entire genre just like kind of like blossom around unpacking like the horrors of racism and the horrors of white supremacy and capitalism, because that would be fascinating. Like if people like it would be so fucking fascinating. So yeah, anyways, that's a bit off topic, but yeah, anything anyone else wants to add to that, or Stranger Things, or any of that?
Let's see. Somebody said there is a video about the horror answer to the Satanic Panic. I just saw it. Try to find it. Oh, there's a cat somewhere apparently.
Yeah, sorry, my cat.
Wow, you said that, and my cat just walked into the room right as you said that.
Cat's always good for the viewership. But is there anything else? Anybody we didn't talk about? Yeah. Trying to think. Oh, I think you want to talk about how like did you talk about like how like the situations where Lucas and Erica are put in, or like how they're like they're I forget, Louis. It was something that you brought up about specifically. I think it was Lucas, and how like he's put in a lot of situations. Like, is that really appropriate? Or his character, the characters are not very well fleshed out. I don't know if you've already talked about that, but I remember that was something.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit. Oh, what were you saying?
Oh no, it's something. Or he's like they're like violently arrested. Somebody brought up, I think, in the chat too, that they're Lucas and Erica are like kind of like violently, not even arrested by cops, but they're like violently arrested by people, white people.
Yeah, these like white Jews just like literally like throw Erica to the ground. They're like, I'm gonna beat you, a little shit. And I'm like, this is like a 12-year-old girl or something. Like, yo. But yeah, like it's just kind of like taken as like, oh, well, those are like the baddies, so they're gonna be bad. But there is like something in there where I'm like, okay, like there's just like okay, like if that was like a white, would that happen if it's a white girl? Maybe it would have still been written that way because it's supposed to be the bad guys and supposed to show them as being bad. So like maybe regardless of someone's race, like they would have done that. But then also, yeah, like I literally saw that and I was like, that makes me think of like police, like how police brutalize Black people. And someone in the comments said that too. So there's obviously like this experience that a number of Black people are having, like watching the scene, being like, this reminds me of like how violent the police are. And I think for me, it's like, there's like all these things like in Stranger Things that like I noticed about like the way that Erica and Lucas are written, that other Black people are having this experience of, you know, and again, just to be extremely clear, like I know that not all Black people are going to have this experience or agree on this, but like there are a number of Black people who are like watching these Black characters and are being like, why are they written this way? Or like, why are they not unpacking this racial issue? Or like, why are they bringing up like, you know, Billy being a racist and then not actually addressing that? And like, yeah, I think just to me, like, it's just kind of like another example of like, you know, like this, I really wonder if this character was written by a Black person, because yeah, or maybe if it was, like maybe they should have consulted other Black people to kind of like understand, because like it's just, it would have been so different. And yeah, there's like a lack of depth. There's like all these issues that come up and a lack of being able to deal with them. And it's also not just for, you know, the Black characters. I think they do that with Robin's character around being queer and all these things where they just kind of dropped the ball, and I feel like it was so close to being okay, but they just didn't quite get it.
Yeah, like Robin. Yeah, I think it's kind of like an example of how they are not. It's not really taking the input of it's not really if there is input, it's not being implemented. It just doesn't feel that way. I don't know. I know it's kind of like an intuition thing. Like, how do you know? I'm not in the production studio, but it's kind of like you can kind of tell the gaze, like who's looking at it, and then whether the gaze is having a response. Like, actually, like there's a few things I remember reading that like Winona Ryder is like, in the 1980s, that song wasn't out in this year, right? Because I actually lived through it. And Duffers, you guys are like 36. Like, how do you guys don't even know what you guys are talking about right now? And that's a whole other thing, which is like a lot of times it kind of feels like big time Hollywood, more well-to-do privileged people, white dudes specifically, who don't even have an experience of being nerds in the 80s or 90s, but they know, oh, that's something that's really popular right now. And we kind of know a little bit about that, but we don't really know that much about it because we wrote all this stuff into the thing. And it's like, it was interesting that like Winona Ryder was like, as somebody who experienced the 80s and the 90s, this is all wrong. And like that, it got to the point of the script was written and edited, and then Winona's about to act it, and like, you guys are completely screwed. You completely are getting wrong this 80s nostalgia time period that you're supposed to be like so much about, but do you not care or what? Like, it's almost like a I don't know. That's another like one of those weird things. I mean, it's not to say that's something, but that's just kind of like that's something that's like like, I don't know. It just like a few other things. It just rings really weird, and like, and along with the not really having well fleshed out characters when it comes on the queerness, race, etc. And obviously the anti-communism. It's I think it's just more examples of where that's lacking. And like, again, we kind of said it several times, but it could have been like much better if all of these things were kind of tied together. Now, somebody actually brought up, this is actually something that I didn't want to, I mean, I don't know, I'm taking too much airtime, just cut me off. But somebody brought up the best metal song for that scene where Eddie is playing metal in the underside for the spiraling bats. And there's a little discussion about that. And I was talking to as somebody who actually plays metal guitar, I just released a metal album called Colonizers Are Going to Hell.
Oh my gosh. I like wanted to share that, and I was like literally just like all the shit I got for saying white people are colonizers. Like, should I do this? And I should have. I'm just gonna share it. I think it's a great album, and everyone should check it out.
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, you can find it on Bandcamp, and that's why I did this stream, so I could sell my album. I'm just kidding. But no, it's like I put that album out in part because I was inspired by not just Stranger Things, but like, I mean, I was like thinking about, I was watching Sabrina, actually, which is actually way more based than it has any right to be as a teenage witch show. I've been watching all of this stuff, and I was really thinking about like hell and the imagery of demons and Christianity in this time of Christo-fascism, Christian nationalism, and in the context of Stranger Things, which is about the satanic panic era of the 80s. And I was like, I had to make this thing. And like this album, colonize. It's like colonizers are going to hell. You're doomed, Space Marine. Speaking of Doom, that's one of my favorite games. And so that's like, I have a song just about demons getting colonized by Space Marines. And it's actually like, they're not that bad. They're just like another alien species that humans opened up a portal and they did capitalist settler colonialism and burned all the imps. And now the demons are going to come kick your ass on Earth. Everything you think you know about demons is Western propaganda. Like you think, anyways. So it's kind of like, it is kind of like, as somebody who is playing a lot of metal music, like I do play a lot of music. I was in lots of bands, and I did play metal. I mean, I have my guitar right here. I don't have a Warlock. I'm gonna go get one so I can when I literally had one back in high school, and I had like a really super good metal guitar teacher who was like, he was a speed demon. Like he had like a, he was like wildly fast. I remember the first time I watched him, and he was also a queer Hawaiian and Filipino. He was like a queer person of color, and he was the first time I actually saw. So he had like this hair that was like down to here. He had like pentagrams and stuff all over his walls, and I was going to a Catholic school, right? And I was all like taught to be a good little Christian white American, right? At this, as a native Hawaiian, we talked to, anyways, part of genocide in Hawaii and cultural annihilation of our ways. And I saw this dude who's like dressed in this hair, and I'm over there being a good little choir boy, and I wanted to take guitar lessons, and he has like pentagrams, he has like rings with skulls on them, he's got like candles. I'm like, oh my god, is he biting the heads off of bats? I was a little bit scared the first time I met this guy, my guitar teacher, and he was like, okay, I'm going to show you how to play this song. This is by Iron Maiden, or this is by King Diamond. It's obscure metal. This is a E frigid, A sharp minor mixolydian scale. And he was like, it sounded like he was possessed by Satan or something. I mean, to my Christianized, colonized brain, I'm like, am I doing something wrong by even being in this room with this queer, like, demon? I kind of thought of it as a demon, but then I was like, but actually, this is like very cool. That was actually the first time I actually thought, maybe I'm not like a straight. I didn't really know what even queerness meant at the time. I was like, I want to be this. I'm terrified by this person, but I also want to be this person. It's kind of like that was like when I started. Like, it was like Dustin looking at Eddie and being like, that guy is so cool. I don't know what's happening, but this guy is like not like part of this rest of this American, cis heteronormative white world. But that guy is like the bad guy. But I want to be this person. So that was like my first intro actually to that whole thing. And I was like, that's part of why whenever I would perform, I would like, and I got really good at guitar, and I play a lot of guitar. And I'm like way off the topic right now, but that's like, I think that that's why like that there's so many levels where that thing like really hits home for me. Not the Eddie character and the metal music. And anyway, I totally blew it. I'm like taking all the airtime, but I just want to say that Run to the Hills is a great song. Okay, Iron Maiden, this is for all the metal nerds. Iron Maiden is a good band, but Metallica is this again. That's a part of the liberal, mainstream American perspective, is that Stranger Things is not a based leftist communist POC made show. It's a white Hollywood mainstream number one show in America in this June 2022 show. And Metallica, if you say metal, everybody thinks of Metallica, right? And that's anybody who doesn't know metal, they're going to think Metallica. And Master of Puppets does fit. I don't think Iron Maiden Run to the Hills would be appropriate because Eddie's not indigenous. It is a show. It is a song that's about indigenous people, but I don't know. It would ring a little bit weird. And I think actually Master of Puppets is also the reference for the theme song of Doom. And I think it's for a good reason. And I do think, and actually Vecna with his spider webs and weaving all these tentacles in people's minds, puppeteering all of Earth's, poor victim mortals. It makes a lot of sense. And anyway, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go on forever, but yeah, that's my metal take for you. Yeah.
My brother's learning to play metal guitar right now, and he said Megadeth maybe, but also Giga in the chat said maybe Ace of Spades would have been a appropriate song, but the metaphor is there for the Master of Puppets and Vecna, like with the tentacles. So I understand. And also, yeah, it's super recognizable. Everyone knows Metallica.
Ace of Spades. Yeah, I mean, Ace of Spades. That's the problem is, there's not like a, like if Iron Maiden was an indigenous band, but it's a bunch of British guys making a song. Run to the Hills is a song about, indigenous people, the settler colonial genocide, and Eddie does Run. If Redbone was the only band, Come Get Your Love, like one of the only like actual indigenous bands. If they wrote that song, it would be more appropriate. I'm trying to think of the best. I think Master of Puppets. Like I am not a fan. I know somebody said Metallica is libertarianism, the band, right? And James Hetfield and what's his face, the drummer. They're kind of they are like a more mainstream, well-known band. But I do think it does. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that fits better than Master of Puppets. So that's gonna be. I did like a whole freaking hour rant on a recent stream about that, and if I think of something, Ace of Spades doesn't make sense. But if I think of something better, I will name it, and I'm gonna I'm gonna TikTok duo with the scene, and I'm gonna play the song that I think is better. I'll just write a song that's better. How about that? Anyways, I'm sorry for derailing this whole thing into metal. Yeah.
Shame on you, Silver Spook. How dare you? No, I think it's great. Yeah, is there anything else that I feel like is maybe starting to get to a point of wrapping up? Is there anything else people want to add about Stranger Things? Any last thoughts?
I want to ask Ryndes, what do you think? Because I've been talking so much, but Ryndes, what do you think about the Carlisle character? Because I think he's Mexican, right?
Right. I think that they could have rewritten him a little bit, so that it wouldn't be so much of like I don't know. It gave me like Cheech and Chong vibes, a little bit of a stereotype of kind of like the stoner Chicano. But they could have rewritten him a little bit better. But mostly, I think that the actor executed it really well. It didn't feel too, I don't know, like he didn't feel like typecast, or it didn't feel like he was doing a caricature. He was just their friend who happened to be Mexican. He was also a stoner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like with a lot of these characters, like they could have done better, and then also it's like a bit of a double-edged sword because they also I felt like were like actually endearing, like kind of like what I was saying like about Erica. Like I think Erica is like truly endearing, and also there's like a problem with dark skin Black women or dark skin Black girls being portrayed as just like really sassy and uncaring. And yeah, so it's like all these things where it's like, and I think with him, you could say that with Argyle, like there's like kind of like maybe there is like an issue about like him being typecasted or not typecasted, like but like him being a stoner, and also like I found him to be like a very endearing character.
Hmm. I know
Yeah.
he did another show, or I think it was another movie where he played a similar character. So
Mhm.
maybe they saw him in that show and thought, oh, he'd be good for this role also. Like gave it to him as an option.
Mhm.
But overall, I did like Argyle as a character. He was one of my favorite characters in the show this season. I
Same.
hope he comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, everything he said like just cracked me up. Like, yeah. Oh, I like wrote something down, but I totally wonder if I can like find it.
There's that one scene where Argyle. Did you mention this?
Oh,
Where like, oh, go ahead.
wait, can I? Sorry, I wrote this thing down where like they go to see like Dustin's girlfriend's house to ask
Mhm.
for help, and they're like, yeah, dude, like be careful because they're like super religious, and he's like, oh, I'm spiritual too, and I don't know, I just the way that he's just like super cool with everyone, and just like I don't know, it's just like seems like so genuinely sweet, and yeah, that he was a really sweet character.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just I like my favorite part of Argyle was Argyle shows up and it's like when they first meet, they get off the visitors get off the plane and Argyle like gives someone a hug. I forget who it is. It was Mike. Gives Mike a hug, but it's
Mhm.
like, oh no, your shirt's off brand. We'll get you the real shirt. That scene was cracking me up.
Yeah. And he's like, this is really awkward. And like, I don't know. Yeah, I loved that scene too. Yeah. So yeah, any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, any other thought? Yeah, I think I basically said everything. But it's- yeah. Oh, by the way, somebody asked for the guitar. Sorry for the metal album that I put out. The colonizers are going to hell. It's right. I put the link there. And if you are somebody, I want to say this real quick. This because actually applies to this thing, which is like for people who are like not sure. Some people are saying like this album talks about cooking and eating cops and this and that, and like that's not cannibalism because demons are not humans. Okay, so number one, number two,
Bada boom, bada bing.
uh, but it's also like if you like a lot of the show, it's like kind of circling back to the show too. It's like people are like, oh, I can't deal with this album because like my ancestors had slaves and were racists and America was I live on I don't want to think about living on stolen land. Somebody said something like that too. One of my black and indigenous friends was like, I was trying to share your album with them. One of my black indigenous friends was trying to share like this album with one of the white friends, and the white friend was like, and he's used to be good. I mean, he still is friends, and they have like a working relationship and all this stuff. But then he's like, I can't listen to this album because it talks about things that talk about who my ancestors were, right? As a descendant of pilgrims, right? And white people in America. And it's like, well, I mean, what's wrong about that? I mean, if you were invading your territory, wouldn't you want to fight back? Or wouldn't you be justified in fighting back if you're all being genocided and killed? It's like, well, I mean, I guess, but I just don't want to think about my white great grandpa as being a bad person or something like that. So I just can't deal with this. And it was like, but that's kind of like that's a little bit of the problem of the show too, which is like, we could go a little deeper, right, into the racism and what's really behind what is really, what is really going on with the Satanic Panic and anti-communism and all these other things. But it's kind of like, well, this is a mainstream show and that would make Western audiences too uncomfortable. And how we go make all the money, right? And it's like, anyway, so that's kind of like, so for what it is, I mean, just kind of like summing up the show, it's kind of like, that's like, the good things about the show are like where it's like, the things that are like accessible to like mainstream audiences. It's kind of like Metallica, it's like, oh yeah, it sounds good, it's good, but it's like, it's not going the extra mile that you kind of like, people need to be going right now. I think and that's kind of my thing. It's like the show entertaining, is it good? But it's another thing is like, is the show important? Is it moving people's? Is it moving culture and the people in the direction they need to go? Right. And I feel like a lot of the Jordan Peele stuff does that. The Taika Waititi stuff does that. And then the Stranger Things is good, but it's not like going where we are right now.
No. Anyway, so. Yeah, the fact that it has like anti-communist rhetoric in this time just like is something that just really sticks with me. Just like, especially like I was saying in the beginning, just like especially like with climate change, like we don't really like have time to like be anti-communist. Like just like there's like an actual like imperative to, like, even if you're not actually communist, like let's just say that you're just like a leftist, like there's like an actual, like, having anti-communist propaganda just ends up kind of hurting like any movements like trying to actually get to a place where we can like sustainably like have energy and sustainably have like all these systems that aren't like having this much amount of carbon emissions. Like it's just like, I think people kind of like do this thing where it's like, oh, well, we're not as extreme as like this group of people. And I think like a lot of leftists will kind of like try to be like, oh, like we might be leftists, but we're not like these tankies over here or something. And like, meanwhile, like that kind of rhetoric actually like ends up just kind of like hurting, just kind of like just ends up like hurting like the possibility of like leftist movements happening, like period. Like I don't really think people get that, but it's like, yeah, we just don't have time to be anti-communist. Like I think for me too, it's like, even though I don't really know much about the Soviet Union, it's just like the communist stuff that I've read has like always like so far, besides like the Communist Manifesto, has been Black and Indigenous. And so there's like a way where like, at least for me, like it just, like I know there's also like Black and Indigenous anarchists and things like that, but like to me, like it feels like I had like this tie to communism where I think of like Black and Indigenous people, and because I just read a lot of like, or like that's just like the stuff that I've read, but it seems like really important. Like it just seems really important in like it's addressing like all these issues of white supremacy, capitalism, and climate change, and like it kind of seems like some of the most important voices are doing that. So yeah, I just am like, we just don't need anti-communist propaganda right now, or pretty much ever, even if you're literally not a communist. Like it's not something that we need. Yeah. Oh, Alice L said, yeah, that's something I appreciate a lot from watching this stream, is that there's finally a chance to dig deeper at all the lip service the show makes towards the many problems within its world. Yeah, I think I really appreciated just kind of talking with everyone and just kind of getting out everything and not having to make like an official video essay, but just like kind of just talk with everyone, read some comments, and like just hash it out, because it's something that I was really excited to talk about, because it's Stranger Things is such a mixed bag. Yeah, anything else before we call it a night?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want to, keep doing these things, I'm definitely down for it. I'm gonna try. I've already thrown out, just one Resident Evil, the Netflix show. I've watched the entirety of that.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna get to. Yeah, I reckon. It's not the best thing in the world, but at the same time, it's kind of like, why is everybody hanging on it? When it has, anyways, it's got it's got, I think Ryndes brought that up. The way people are reviewing things like Nope and Resident Evil, it's like, are you reviewing it because you actually thought the writing was bad, or are you just like racist as shit right now? Like, there's anyways. So I think that in the future, I think like we should, thanks a lot for doing it since I'm already talking about it, thanks everybody for watching. And yeah, it's really great. And I think it's good to talk through these things in this kind of space. Cause it's not, it takes time to do video essays, I know. And so yeah, it's good to keep going. Yeah. So if we want to do more of these in the future, I'm definitely down.
Yeah, I'm definitely down too. I don't stream much on my channel, so I'm not sure of like how many like I would host, but if people are down to like, I don't know, if we could like rotate on different channels, or also I don't know if people would be down to just do it and just also just like talk about it. I don't know, but I'm down to definitely do stuff like this. It's really fun it's been really nice just like chatting about stuff.
Yeah, and I can host too, or in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I'm willing to host as well. I really enjoy talking with people about this because I sort of just talk to my friends, and I know that they enjoy the conversations, but maybe they're not as informed about like media or what's going on, like past like just being a viewer or going to the movies, watching a movie, and they're not looking at the themes. And it's nice to talk to people who are as invested in this as I am.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and if anyone's still watching, let me know what you think about streams, because I don't do streams, but if people like them, I might do them more. I just like, because my channel focuses on video essays, like I don't stream that much. But if people like this, then let me know. Or I also can like make a Twitch or something like that. Yeah, let me know what y'all think about streaming and anyone's interest in that. But yeah, I would love to keep on talking with you all about stuff. I like love this whole like like non-whites nerd thing we've got going on, talking about nerdy stuff. Like, yeah, I love it so much. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Anyone want to plug their channels one last time before we get going?
I'll go real quick. So I'm Silver Spook guy on Twitter. I make video games is my main thing. Actually, I'm a video game nerd, metalhead nerd, D&D nerd, all the nerds. Stranger Things nerd. But I do YouTube. My YouTube channel is Silver Spook video channel. I do like one video essay. It's just really just like a live stream of live video. Live stream ad improv video essay based on a new media topic usually, and then I Twitch stream, and I'm putting to we're going to be in another panel actually. Me and Professor Flowers on this Saturday with Luna talking about problems in the Western left. But anyways, so I'm doing lots of media and videos and Twitter stuff, and then making games. Yeah.
Awesome.
And you can find me on Twitch, Ryndes, Ryendys. I'm going to be talking more about media and representation in media. Probably going to start next week with a new series, but I'll announce that on my Twitter, and my Twitter's the same as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to end the broadcast here. Thank you so much for everyone for watching, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day or night, wherever you're at. I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Thank you.